They played my own voice back to me before they let me speak. "State the gap," the first magistrate said, and the panel behind her, 3 Osik in gray hearing robes, their stalked eyes all swiveled the same direction at once, which still unsettled me after 11 years on this station, did not blink because they could not. The transcript hung above the chamber in cold blue glyphs, my statement from 6 days prior rendered word for word, and there, between the line where I said I held him and the line where I said he stopped breathing, sat a flagged interval. Anomaly 0000. 11. No vocal data. "I don't have anything to add to it," I said. "That is the problem, Foreman Wells." The first magistrate's voice came out flat through the translation collar, no warmth in it, no malice either, just procedure. 11 seconds in which a dying man's only witness produced no recorded speech. The magistrate does not accept silence as testimony. Silence is the one input our courts cannot weigh. I'd known this morning would go this way since the moment they pulled me off the loading deck. Osik law ran on one principle above all others. A thing is true because it was recorded, and a thing recorded incompletely is presumed false until proven otherwise. 40 years they'd shared this station with human crews, and they still hadn't built a category in their law for grief that didn't narrate itself out loud. They didn't trust feeling. They trusted tape. "Bardos Wren was my friend," I said. "He had 9 fractured ribs and a collapsed lung from a cargo clamp failure that was station maintenance's fault, not mine, and I was the one holding him while he went. I'm not going to perform what I said to him for a room." The magistrate's eye stalks contracted, the Osik equivalent of narrowing. Then the gap remains unresolved, and unresolved gaps are read against the witness. The maintenance super stood from the gallery without being asked. Dren Holt, sleek-suited, a man who'd spent 2 years building a paper case against my crew one minor infraction at a time, finally handed something worth using. "If I may, magistrate, we've filed counter-testimony. Telemetry shows the clamp's automated load sensor flagged an irregular weight distribution 4 minutes before failure. Foreman Wells's crew logged the override that cleared it." If Foreman Wells spent 11 seconds in silence rather than explaining what happened in that bay, I'd suggest the magistrate consider what a man says when he has nothing safe to say. "The override sequence was standard," I said, "and you know it was standard because your division wrote the manual that calls it standard. That clamp had 2 prior flags for hairline fatigue in the support arm. Both went into your queue. Both got closed without inspection. I filed the second flag myself, 6 weeks before the failure, and I've got the timestamp to prove it. I'm not the one with something unsafe to say." "Allegations, Foreman. The recording offers facts." Holt sat back down, satisfied, like a man laying the final card. "And the magistrate has already heard that the man who held the clamp's last witness statement contains a hole exactly where an honest account would need to explain itself. It's not a hole. It's a man who just watched his friend die asking him to hold still." That is your characterization. The magistrate deals in record, not characterization. The first magistrate's gaze swept the chamber once, gathering the room's attention back to her the way I'd watched her do a dozen times before, in a dozen other disputes that had nothing of this weight to them. Mr. Holt's filing is procedurally sound. Foreman Wells's objection to it is noted but unsupported by anything admissible. The gap stands as the only unresolved element in an otherwise complete record, and an unresolved element this magistrate cannot simply set aside, however sympathetic the circumstance. "Then we have no further use for your verbal testimony on the matter," she said, her stalks turned toward the bailiff. "Enter the silence as—" "Wait." It wasn't me who said it. It was Yulin Ka, the station's junior recorder clerk, standing at the side door with something small and scuffed held against her chest like she was afraid to put it down. "There's a second recording," she said. "From the same room. I only found it yesterday going through the maintenance bay's lost and found bin. It's a child's toy. A talkback recorder. It was running." The chamber went still in the particular way Ossic goes still. Not silence, exactly, but a kind of frozen attentiveness. Eye stalks all locking onto the small gray object in her hands like gun barrels. "This is irregular," Holt said, already half out of his seat again. "Undisclosed evidence at this stage of proceedings." "It was logged the moment I found it," Yulin said, not flinching. "Chain of custody is clean. I can produce the intake record." "Whose toy?" the first magistrate asked, ignoring him. "Bardos Wren's daughter's. He kept it in his coat pocket. She'd recorded herself counting to 100 on it for him to listen to on long shifts. It must have switched on when the clamp came down, knocked his coat, triggered the playback button. It ran the whole time. 11 minutes of charge left on it. It caught the room." I felt my chest go tight in a way the cargo clamp itself hadn't managed. I hadn't known that toy was there. I hadn't known anything was listening except me and Bardos, and the slow tick of a man's pulse going thready under my hand. I'd thought, walking in here, that the only account of those 11 seconds left in the universe was the one I refused to give. I'd been wrong, and the wrongness landed somewhere under my ribs, not dread exactly. Something closer to being caught in an honesty I hadn't planned on having proven. Holt had gone very still in the gallery, the kind of stillness a man adopts when he's recalculating the odds in real time and doesn't like the new number. "Play it," the magistrate said. Yulin set it on the evidence plinth. The little speaker crackled tinny, a child's recorded voice already mid-count, 46, 47, 48. Then a metallic groan, a heavy thud, a man's cry cut short into a wet gasp, and then my own voice, much closer to the toy than I remembered being, rough and low. "I've got you. I've got you, Bardos. Look at me, not the ceiling, look at me." A long, ragged breath, Bardos's voice barely there. Tell her, I will, I'm telling her myself, word for word. You don't have to spend air on it." 11 seconds of nothing but breathing. My breathing, his breathing, slowing. In the chamber, nobody moved. Even Holt had gone quiet, his mouth still half open on whatever objection he'd been building. Then 4 words clear as anything. 101, buddy. The recording clicked off. The toy's charge had run out mid-breath. Nobody in the chamber moved. I watched the first magistrate's eye stalks swivel toward me, and for the first time in 11 years of dealing with the Ossic, I saw what might have been confusion on a face built with no muscles for it. "Define the phrase," she said. 101, buddy. It does not parse against any Ossic idiom in translation, and it does not appear in your written statement." "It wasn't for the statement," I said. "It was for him." "Explain." "His daughter's count," I said. My voice didn't come out steady, and I let it not be steady because I was done performing for them. "She does it every night before bed, counts to 100 for him on that toy, so he's got her voice with him on shift. He always tells her she stopped one short. Says somebody's got to finish the job, says it every single time, it's their thing, has been since she could talk." I'd heard him say it to her over the comm 100 times, heard him laugh about it in the break room. So when he couldn't finish his own sentence to me, when he was burning his last air trying to tell me something for her, I gave him the one thing I knew would let him stop trying. I finished the count for him, told him I'd say it for her so he didn't have to spend his last breath on the words. He heard it. He went quiet after that, not because I'd hidden anything from this room. Because I'd already said the thing he needed said, and he didn't need to ask twice. That's the 11 seconds. 2 men breathing, and one of them finally not having to fight for air to finish a sentence. The first magistrate didn't speak for a long moment. Her stalks had gone rigid, fixed on a point somewhere past me, and the rest of the panel had fallen into the same stillness, like the translation collars had hit a phrase they needed extra cycles to render correctly. "The maintenance division's counter-testimony alleges concealment in that interval," she finally said, but the procedure had gone out of her voice. What was left sounded almost like she wanted to be told she was wrong. "There's nothing concealed in 11 seconds of a man dying easy instead of hard," I said. You wanted a recording. Now you've got two of them, and they agree with each other word for word, down to the part where I don't say anything because I'm too busy listening to him not need to. Mr. Holt wanted you to hear a guilty silence. What you actually got was a man keeping a promise so fast there wasn't time to log it as words. The gallery had gone the kind of silent that has weight to it. Holt didn't stand again. The first magistrate turned to her panel, conferred in the clicking under language the translation callers didn't bother rendering, then turned back. "The gap is resolved," she said. "Entered as compassionate non-disclosure, corroborated by independent recording. The Maintenance Division's counter-testimony is dismissed in full. The cause of death is reaffirmed as equipment failure, prior flagged twice and uninspected. Division liability stands as filed." A pause, the stalks tilting in a way I'd come to recognize after 11 years, as the closest the OSIC came to something like respect. "The magistrate will retain a copy of the toy recording. For the permanent record." "For the record," I repeated. "It's the only part of that day I ever wanted kept anyway. The rest of it, the clamp, the cue, the two flags somebody decided weren't worth a closer look, that's yours to argue over. That 11 seconds was never up for argument. It was just mine and his and now hers." I walked out past Holt without looking at him. Yulin caught up with me in the corridor outside, the toy still in her hands, wrapped now in a static-proof sleeve like it was something precious. Which it was. "I'll need to log it as evidence for 30 days, she said. "After that it goes back to lost and found unless someone claims it." "Bartos's daughter," I said. "She's 7. She doesn't know any of this happened yet. His sister's been the one breaking the news to her, slow, the way you're supposed to, a little more each day instead of all at once. She knows her father's hurt. She doesn't know the rest yet. When the 30 days are up, I want to be the one who hands it back." Yulin nodded and didn't ask why, which I appreciated because I wasn't sure I could have explained it without my voice breaking the rest of the way. "I'll flag it under your name," she said. "Custody transfer day 31. She hesitated at the door. "For what it's worth, foreman, I almost didn't go through that bin. Lost and found gets cleared every quarter, no questions, straight to recycling." Another 4 days, and that toy would have been melted down for housing stock, and none of this would exist anywhere except in your head. I hadn't let myself think about that version of the morning. I made myself not think about it now either. 29 days later, I stood on a different deck, in front of a girl with her father's stubborn jaw, and put the toy in her hands myself. I didn't tell her about the tribunal, or Holt, or the magistrate, or any of the rest of it. I told her the part that mattered. "He heard you counting," I said, "all the way to 48, and he wanted you to know he finished it for you. 101, that's the part he wanted said." She pressed the toy to her chest the way Yulin had carried it into that chamber, like something you hold instead of something you hold onto. And she didn't cry. Not then. She just nodded, once, the way her father used to nod when a job got done right, like she'd already decided she was going to be the kind of person who heard hard news standing up. I told the magistrate I didn't talk well while someone was dying in my arms. That part was true, but I'd talked plenty. Just not for them and not for the record, and not until the only person who needed to hear it had a recorder running. 11 seconds of silence on their transcript, and somewhere in those 11 seconds, on a toy recorder with a dying battery, I'd kept the only promise that ever needed keeping.